All right, Mopar people, welcome back to the channel. I'm JustMoparJoe. Today we're gonna play with a little bit of steering on our 86 Dodge Ramcharger. Titled the Ramcharger Revival. I got several videos on this if you want to check them out. But I had to make a little improvement to our steering situation, so let me show you. It's been modified before. That's a piece of black pipe from Home Depot. So better than nothing, and not quite factory. This old loose steering knuckle thing here was very worn out. It probably had a 1/4 inch of slack in it. So what I did was cut it off just as close as I could to the end to get the beautiful spline side. And as you saw in the other video, or as you will see, welded to this U-joint. I got good penetration there. It's very hot, but I got a good little blue line. There's our little end we just welded on. I got her cut off and beveled, so it'll start into our joint. Then I just ground the end of the joint, so she slides on real nice just like that. I can now stitch that up right there until the cows come home. I'll get it turned sideways and do it, but after that point, I gotta call time out because I can't weld this end back on our shaft end because one, I don't know the length, and two, I don't I need to clock the steering wheel correctly inside the truck, or it'll have a crooked wheel the rest of its life. So I cut off a piece of the D shaft, slid in, made myself a little bit of spacer there, welded 3 different ways. Went ahead and tightened up my set screws and all that. I didn't have to have those. For now, I've got this D shaft where it'll slide in, and it's just bolted. But I'm going to weld here also, just so I know it's there and strong and won't ever loosen over time. But right now it's too long, far too long. On the other side, there's our piece that goes on our rag joint, and I put a little chamfer on it. Got a new rag joint also. The other one was sloppy, slap dab worn out. So I got it mounted to our new box from LMC trucks. And I'll get this mounted back on, bolted up, and our pitman arm. So the pitman arm, I fought for 2 or 3 days with, off and on, lubing it, heating it. And I was trying to use a goofy old Riley puller. And it turned out that I went to my buddy Derek's shop and borrowed his. He's got a snap-on. It took less than 30 seconds and popped it right off. So it pays to have the correct tool. Our spline shaft end. I'm not going to put this on until I get the box mounted in the truck and flipped over. I got the bracket cleaned up and painted. All the bolts cleaned up over there. But I wanted to get this on and then spun both directions so I can know for sure that I have my pitman arm correctly oriented. It has 4 different splines to it, and it'll slide on. And pretty well the nut and washer is going to pull it into place, but I don't want to put it on upside down or cocked goofy. I think it's going to be fairly obvious whenever it goes into place how it should be. But once I get my box mounted, I can then shorten my shaft up and mark it to where, basically mark it for correct length, have it on my end here, and then I can come in and be sure my steering wheel is perfectly centered. Because if I weld that up and it's off center, it will forever drive with it crooked, so we don't like that at all. And this is our time to fix it. So that's my process. Let me go to work. Here's that little roll pin. It goes in our hole right here and has to be driven in. It only drives from one way, the best. And there's a gap or a little notch. I can actually slide that off there. There we go. You can see our notch in our shaft there. I think this thing will spline up anyway. Yeah, see there? But we want it to be splined up as to where the roll pin gap perfectly hits just like that. Perfectly hits that. I actually have a flashlight I shine down in there before I drive that roll pin in, but I'm not going to drive the roll pin right now. I may just start it a little bit, and then I'll get my, see, I have my box in, which was a pain in itself. You'd think it'd be easier than that, but it wasn't. Here comes our shaft up. So I'm gonna probably take myself a straight edge and just bring up from here and lay onto that and add just a little bit to it, because you can't, it's hard to add back to the shaft after you cut it off. Also, the rag joint itself will have a little bit of angle whenever this thing tightens up. I just have it bolted up tight to the rag joint, the end. And when those two mate, they actually mate. This will be flush against that. So giving our joint just a hair of angle will be good for us. But I think it's going to line up and do nicely. Let me get that marked. And when that, it looks like whenever that, the shaft itself is actually in place. So it'll basically live its whole life at a pretty straight angle with just a little bit in it. So that should make it last a lot longer and be nicer. All that stuff looks good. I have these two set screws just finger tight with the shaft brought into the inside of that lip. So I can tighten those and pop this thing off and weld that when I weld my other one for the bottom. So we're in business. I got my wheels straight right now. Boom and boom. And I have my steering wheel straight. And I just locked that pair of vice grips onto that top shaft. Here's our shaft end just laying up against here after I cut it. And you remember I cut it a little bit long. So all I'm going to do is put my other chamfer on the shaft itself. And when this, I'm going to go ahead and mark it, obviously. And take both pieces off. And that way that end will be butted to the end of that end. And I'll have my nice chamfer. And I can weld with my good welder, not my Chinese welder, and she'll be nice and secure there. So once that's done, I can bring it back and put it on. It's probably going to be a challenge to get it on there, especially if I take the slip out of the other end of my shaft. I don't mind fighting it some, and if I need to pop these bolts back out, I can. It's not a terribly big deal. The whole project itself scares you in any way. They do sell this whole shaft assembly online, I think, for about 300 or 350 bucks. That's more than I wanted to pay for it. And I actually think this will be a better job once it's done. So next time you see it, it's going to be welded up and we can give it a try. Well, we finally gave her the shaft here. I think it looks pretty good in there. I have not painted this thing yet because it's about 39 degrees in here. And my heater's working and working, but it's not quite there yet. But yeah, put me a big solid tack on both sides of that bottom joint. Top was welded up nice. I drove my roll pin back in here. And on my rag joint, that was kind of my last weld up we just talked about. I welded it with a pretty deep chamfer, and then I re-welded that, ground it, and then welded one more time where it needed it. It was kind of nice to use as the guide. You have a bolt that has a small or a larger diameter and a smaller diameter, so that's probably 3/8 diameter, and that one's 5/16, so a little something special there. I got to get my four-wheel drive cable out of the way. We can re-straighten the wheel. I had to turn it to get my bolts in, Loctite those. And able to rotate this in, I had to pull one of those pins out. This is like the rebuilder kit of the rag joint. And you'll see there's a nut on the back side of that pin. So they give you 2 new pins with nuts, because I had to drill out the old ones. So I had to pop that one back out, start the one bolt, and then rotate the shaft in, put that one back in, put that one in. So it is very much in place and looks good to me. I need to get my hoses hooked back up and fill her up, but let's see if our steering wheel goes straight or not. Here the wheel's turning. There's like virtually no slack. Looks pretty straight to me, folks. If it's off just barely, I can't tell it. And I won't be able to tell it till I drive it, but it's now starting to spit and sputter rain outside. And I still don't have a back glass in here. This is coming next, so y'all get ready for it. Anyway, I appreciate y'all watching, following along with the Ramcharger revival. It's slowly pushing along, and I'm gonna get back to it. So thank y'all for watching, and I'll catch you next time. I absolutely could not stand it. So I had to heat that thing up and shoot it with a little black spray paint. It looks a lot better. Factory almost, except better. And now I guess I'll go ahead and get my rubbers out. Our friend Mr. Terry sent us some nice rubber that will perfectly cover the gaps here on both sides of our Ramcharger. See, this side's still bare over here. And that'll help clear us up real nice, keep our road debris and all that kind of off the engine some and into the fender well. So everything's looking good. I think I need to get some more of the plastic tabs there. But I'm pleased with how our shaft turned out. She looks nice. So far, so good. Anyway,